There are dictators a bit worse than me now. I'm the lesser evil already. That's quite a quote, isn't it, from Alexander Lukashenko?
It really is.
It sort of makes you stop and think about this assumption we have, that when a tyrant finally goes, things have to get better.
Right. There's always that huge sense of relief, that euphoria you see on the streets.
Absolutely. People think, okay, the nightmare's over. But Lukashenko's comment, it hints at something. Well, something more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. That natural hope, that feeling that, okay, now comes democracy. But the reality, as our sources show, it's often much messier and sometimes, frankly, much worse.
So that's what we're diving into today, using the research and articles you brought together. Is the fall of a dictator actually a step towards democracy? Or does it often lead somewhere else entirely?
That's the core question.
Yeah. Our mission here is to unpack that, to look at the patterns, the pitfalls of what happens next, Why does getting rid of one tyrant so often just lead to, well, more tyranny?
It's quite stark when you see how fast that initial joy can just vanish. Those scenes of people celebrating, dancing.
Yeah, you think the suffering is over. For the people who live through it, it is a nightmare ending.
Definitely. But then you look at the numbers, the cold hard data from 1950 to 2012.
And it's a shock, right?
It really is. Only 20% of autocratic leaders who fell were followed by democracy. Just 1 in 5.
Wow. That just completely flips the script on what we think should happen. It suggests this isn't some natural progression to freedom. It's often something else.
It's often more dictators or the country just falling apart into violence and chaos.
Which brings us to that saying, supposedly from Islam Karimov, the Uzbek dictator.
Yes. No man, no problem, which he apparently meant quite brutally. But the reality when a dictator falls is the exact opposite.
No man, many problems. That really captures it.
It does, because suddenly you don't have the man, you have lots of people fighting to be the man.
And compare that to how democracies handle succession.
It's night and day, isn't it? Democracies have rules, institutions, elections, a process.
But in these personalized dictatorships, the whole system is built around the leader. Independent institutions, they're often crushed because they're a threat.
Exactly. The dictator is the one who settles all disputes, often through force. They keep a lid on everything.
So when they fall, boom, the lid blows off.
That's a great way to put it. All those hidden tensions, rivalries between factions, they just erupt.
And your sources say shouts of victory quickly become screams for help. Chilling.
We saw this so tragically in Sudan. Remember the spring of 2019? Khartoum.
Yeah, the images were incredible. Dancing, singing, people riding on tanks, celebrating the end of Omar al-Bashir after 30 years.
Such hope. And it started, remember, with peaceful protest over bread prices. It really looked like a new beginning.
But the protesters might have made him stumble, but it was the military who actually pushed him out, right?
And that's the crucial part. The military delivered the final blow, and then, well, they held on to power.
So the celebrations turned into something else, the sit-in.
Right, the big sit-in on Brie Road near the military HQ. Young people, full of energy, demanding democracy. It went on for weeks. Sometimes soldiers even seemed to join in.
But then June 3rd happened.
Yes. Darkness fell. Literally, the power went out. And then the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, showed up. These were the militias Bashir himself had used.
And the accounts are just horrific.
They are, shouting, "Kill them! Kill them!" Attacking unarmed protesters, beating, looting, burning tents.
There was that live stream footage, a guy filming, gunfire, someone dead on the ground, just chaos and terror.
Clinics were overwhelmed. Gunshots, whipping injuries, bayonets. Even a doctor was shot. And then finding bodies in the Nile weighed down with bricks.
Just unbelievable brutality. So the dream of democracy crushed. The military took full control later in 2021.
Utterly shattered. And it didn't even end there. The two main generals, Dagalo of the RSF and Brand of the regular army, they turned on each other in 2023.
Fighting in the capital city itself.
With rockets, artillery, airstrikes, dragging the whole country into civil war. Thousands likely killed, over 5 million displaced.
It's such a clear, awful example of the problem. Everyone wanted Bashir gone. But nobody could agree on what came next. Democracy, another strongman, and if so, which strongman?
Exactly.
So, given this kind of chaos, why don't dictators plan for succession? It seems like madness not to.
Well, from their perspective, it's perfectly logical. Comes down to self-interest, really.
How so?
Think about it. If you name a successor or even set up a clear process, you're empowering someone. Someone who now has a very strong incentive to, well, replace you sooner rather than later.
It's like your source said, handing the murder weapon to an opponent.
Precisely. So whether the country falls apart after they're gone, that's, at best, of secondary importance, as one piece put it. Staying in power now is what matters.
So when they do fall, you get this mad scramble.
You do. You got insiders trying to grab the top spot, but usually just for themselves, not for democracy.
Then the old guard, the elites, they just want to protect their positions, keep the system going because it benefits them.
Right. And then you have the ordinary people, the masses, who want the complete opposite. They want power and resources shifted away from the regime. They want democracy.
So compromise is basically impossible.
Pretty much. And any group that thinks it can win through violence usually tries it. And sadly, the masses often lose because violence isn't their strength.
And this is worse in the really personalized regimes, right, where everything depended on the one guy.
Much worse. If it's a one-party state, sometimes there are internal rules, ways to manage succession, even if it's still authoritarian. But when it's all about one person, their exit leaves a huge void.
Although, interestingly, you mentioned the palace elites do sometimes push for succession rules?
Yeah, but not out of any love for stability for the country. They care about the system of tyranny continuing, because that's where their power comes from. Civil war ruins it for everyone, including them.
It's not a new problem either, is it? This whole succession thing. You found parallels in medieval monarchies.
Absolutely. Way back around the year 1000 in Europe, you had systems like agnatic seniority. Brother succeeds brother.
Which sounds problematic.
A nightmare for kings, as one source called it. Brothers are often close in age. The younger one has a huge incentive to, shall we say, expedite the succession.
Not great for the king's life expectancy.
Not at all. Which is why many shifted to primogeniture, eldest son inherits.
Makes sense. Big age gap. The son can usually afford to wait.
Exactly. He knows he'll likely outlive his father. It encourages loyalty.
And the data backs this up.
Yeah, a big study of European monarchs found those under primogeniture were more than twice as likely to survive on the throne. Clear rules helped the ruler and the elites. Avoided conflict, kept the system stable.
It protected everyone's interests, in a way.
We even see echoes today. Think of Hafez al-Assad in Syria. He planned for his son Basil. When Basil died, he pivoted to Bashar.
Who was an eye doctor in London. Right. Not exactly groomed for power.
Not at all. But the party elites went along with it. Why? Because they feared the alternative infighting collapse. Bashar was the way to keep their system going, the least bad option for them.
Okay, so we've covered why succession is messy. But does how the tyrant falls make a difference to what happens next? Does the exit route matter?
Oh, hugely. It makes a massive difference. Let's start with maybe the most hopeful path, according to the sources. Nonviolent protest.
Like Armenia's Velvet Revolution in 2018, there was that great quote from the fruit seller.
Yes. A revolution is like getting an empty new house. You still have to fix it up and furnish it. It's just the start, not the end goal.
But the data here is really striking, isn't it?
It is. Chenoweth and Steffen's research, 57% of successful nonviolent campaigns led to democracy. Compare that to less than 6% for violent ones.
57 versus 6? That's enormous. Why such a difference?
Well, nonviolence tends to build broad legitimacy. Lots of people are involved. It sets a precedent for peaceful ways to resolve conflict, and it rewards skills like negotiation, not just brute force.
Okay, so nonviolence is the best bet for democracy. What about coups? They seem like a quick way to get rid of a dictator.
They can be effective at removing the leader, yes. About 2/3 of coups against dictatorships do lead to the regime collapsing. And the democracy odds have gotten a bit better since the Cold War, maybe up to 40% now.
But there's a catch.
A big one. The coup trap. Countries get stuck in cycles. Look at Thailand coup after coup attempt.
Why is that?
Military juntas often lack real legitimacy. They took power by force, so they're vulnerable to being overthrown by force again. It's not like a stable democracy with accepted rules for changing leaders.
Okay, what about assassination? Benjamin Disraeli said it never changed history, but...
Yeah, the evidence suggests he was wrong, at least regarding dictators. Killing a non-democratic leader can actually increase the chances of democracy afterwards.
Because in those personalized systems, the leader is the system, more or less.
Exactly. Their removal creates a bigger rupture than in a democracy with strong institutions. But assassination is targeted. Civil war. That's a whole different scale of destruction.
Millions dead, potentially. And as we saw with Chad, the tyrant falls, but the war, or the tyranny, might just continue under someone else, like the son taking over.
And civil wars often reignite. 2 out of 10 flare up again within 5 years. The underlying problems don't just disappear.
There's also that huge credibility problem you mentioned. Ending a civil war is incredibly hard.
It is. Look at the Katoomba massacre in Burundi, 2004. The FNL rebels under Agathon Rwasa attacked that refugee camp. Horrific violence.
Killing over 150 civilians, many women and children, burned alive, bodies in the river.
Just awful. And Rwasa, accused of war crimes but later became Deputy Speaker of Parliament, ran for president, never faced justice for Katoomba.
So how do you get people like that to lay down their arms? They need guarantees for their safety.
But who can give credible guarantees? A dictator's promise isn't worth much. Remember Idris Deby killing that rebel leader who came back trusting a deal? It makes peace almost impossible to achieve.
Which leads us to the next option, foreign intervention. Trying to impose regime change from outside, like Iraq in 2003.
Right. Bush's declaration, Saddam's statue coming down, then his capture, execution, looked like success initially.
But the cost.
Staggering. Thousands of U.S. troops, tens of thousands of Iraqi lives lost, trillions of dollars, regional chaos, the rise of ISIS.
And a key mistake, your sources argue, was what they did with the old regime.
Yes, the purge dilemma. In Iraq, Paul Bremer's orders, de-Baathification, getting rid of 85,000 people, even teachers, and disbanding the whole army, hundreds of thousands suddenly jobless, armed, and angry.
The CIA warned it would fuel an insurgency.
And it did. By 2006, the Pentagon reportedly thought the U.S. was losing.
And you contrast this with post-WWII Germany,
where the Allies, in the West at least, deliberately kept many former Nazis in their jobs. They prioritized getting Germany running again over complete denazification. Even a later chancellor had been a Nazi party member early on.
It's a tough choice, but the Iraq approach seems to have backfired badly. What's the overall track record for these interventions?
Pretty dismal, honestly. One study found only about 11% of U.S. regime change efforts over a century actually resulted in democracy.
11%. So why do they keep happening?
Well, often democracy isn't the main goal. National security interests usually come first. Remember Kennedy's line about the Dominican Republic. Hope for democracy, but accept tyranny if the alternative is worse, like a Castro-type regime.
Cynical, but maybe realistic from their point of view. There's also that paradox you mentioned.
Yeah, the choice between easy war and hard war. It's often easier to topple dictators in poor, personalized states, but democracy is unlikely. Harder to intervene in richer, more stable autocracies, but if you succeed, democracy has a better chance, though the cost is much higher.
So why do it, given the odds?
Hubris plays a role, no doubt. And sometimes the alternatives just seem too awful to bear, like a dictator using chemical weapons on his own people. You feel you have to do something, even if the chances of success are low.
Okay, one last exit method. The dictator simply dying in office. Happens quite a lot, doesn't it? Bia, Castro, Mugabe, all very old.
Very common. And perhaps surprisingly, this is often the least disruptive exit.
Really? Not an opportunity for change?
Mostly no. One study found only 8% of dictator deaths in office led to regime collapse. Democracy almost never follows.
Why is it so stable?
Because these regimes are usually very entrenched by then. Everyone knows the rules, knows their place. The system just keeps humming along.
So the old guard just picks a successor?
Usually someone safe who won't rock the boat. There's even research suggesting leaders only get allowed to die peacefully if the elites have already sorted out the succession quietly beforehand. It prevents a power struggle just before or after the death.
That's fascinating, a prearranged continuity of the system. And you also noted that how a leader comes to power signals their stability.
Right. If someone takes power through an assassination, it's relatively easy, low cost, doesn't show much strength or support.
Whereas coming to power through a major coup, or winning a rebellion, or leading huge protests,
that takes serious organization, mobilization support. It signals that the new leader or the new regime is actually quite strong and probably less vulnerable to being immediately overthrown themselves. It paradoxically signals stability, even if it's authoritarian stability.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the big takeaway from all this material seems to be, well, when a tyrant falls, don't automatically expect democracy.
Far from it. More often you get this cycle. Dictatorship, then conflict, then another dictatorship. The hopes of the people on the street often get crushed in the power struggles that follow.
It's a really difficult cycle to break.
Incredibly difficult. But, as the sources show, not impossible. It can happen, especially, it seems, when change comes through sustained, nonviolent popular movements.
Which leaves us with some big questions, doesn't it? If we understand the how and the what happens next,
Mm.
how do we actually support positive change effectively? And maybe even more fundamentally, given these terrible odds, given the potential for things to get much worse, is trying to make Tyrants Fall always the wise thing to do?
Heavy questions.